Tentanda via est. The way must be tried. The Stronge Dynasty of Tynan Abbey and the life and murder of Sir Norman Strong. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Stronge Dynasty had been present at Tynan for more than 150 years. Its Irish origins can be traced back to one Matthew Strong of Fifeshire, who had taken part in the defence of Londonderry during the siege of 1688-1689. His son, also Matthew, was listed by King James as one of 2,000 traitors to lose their property and lives. And it was his son in turn, the Reverend James Strong, who, after being made rector of Tynan, would eventually make his home there via a marriage into the local Manson family. That home, Tynan Abbey, was built in the 1750s, and it took the designation Abbey because the grounds had been referenced as having an ecclesiastical purpose as far back as 1072. The Reverend James Strong was created a baronet in 1803, and a stream of highly influential and esteemed descendants followed. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, the name Strong was to become synonymous with such important positions as Member of Parliament, High Sheriff, Deputy Lieutenant, and Justice of the Peace. The fifth baronet was Sir James Henry Strong. Born in 1849 at Kingstown, now Dunleary, he was educated at both Eton and Oxford, became a fully fledged barrister at law, aged just 25, and he served in the 4th Battalion Royal Enniskillen Fusiliers, retiring at the rank of Major. A keen footballer while at college, one of his most unique achievements was being able to boast that he actually played in not one but two finals of the fledgling FA Cup. Upon inheriting the baronet title in 1899, after the death of his father, he returned to the family seat of Tynan Abbey, and he set about pursuing and promoting the causes to which he felt most affinity and dedication: unionism, and in particular Orangeism. Within Orangeism, locally he was District Master of Killaloe. He actually provided an Orange Hall within his Tynan grounds, his Tynan Abbey grounds, for the Coolkill Loyal Orange Lodge 775. And he was County Grand Master of the County Armagh Grand Orange Lodge. In 1914, he succeeded to the rank of Grand Master of the Grand Orange Lodge of Ireland. And in 1920, he took on the role of Imperial Grand Master of the Orange Institution at a time when its worldwide membership was estimated by some sources to be close to 1 million. His prominence in Orangeism ensured Sir James was a figure with an immense influence in political circles, with his political credentials as equally unequivocal as his cultural ones, if not inseparable. Now, the staunch, uncompromising nature of Sir James' politics probably is best illustrated in a reminiscence by Sir Jack Leslie of Castle Leslie in near Glaslock, or at Glaslock in County Monaghan. And just Sir Jack Leslie claimed that an image of Prime Minister Gladstone, of course an advocate and proponent of Home Rule for Ireland, was actually etched into the bottom of Sir James's piss pot at Tynan. So Sir James could express his feelings about Home Rule on a regular basis. His anti-Home Rule stance was manifest as early as 1893, when he was the key member of a group of delegates from the Mid-Armagh parliamentary constituency to the province-wide committee of the first mass anti-Home Rule organisation, the Ulster Defence Union. He later graduated to being a member for the hugely influential 30-delegate Standing Committee of the Ulster Unionist Council. It was within this setting that James Matthew Strong was born in January 1891, and as an only son, it was perhaps close to inevitable that the young Strong would follow in his father's footsteps. Like his father, Orangeism was a central component of his life, with by 1913 holding the role of worshipful master of the Coolkill Loyal Orange Lodge 775 in Killalea district. And in December 1916, despite his then ongoing military service, assuming the unprecedented for his age office of a Deputy Grand Master of the Grand Orange Lodge of Ireland. During the political turmoil of the Third Home Rule crisis, he had begun to assume a prominence. In 1912, he took a break from his studies at Reading University College to sign the Ulster Covenant alongside his father at Tynan Reading Room, and quickly slotted smoothly into the militant anti-Home Rule movement at a high level. Sir James had been the chairman of the original committee formed to organise the County Armagh Ulster Volunteer Force in December 1912. In fact, he would later assume the role of the commander of the 8,000-man strong body, County Armagh Regiment. And he regularly reviewed bodies of Ulster volunteers across Ulster, such as that of the Monaghan Ulster Volunteers in Glaslough, alongside Sir John Leslie. Alongside Sir James, the young Strong too actually sat on that committee at an early stage. And initially, both he and his father were two of only 5 county representatives to the overarching provincial commanding structure of the 100,000 member Ulster Volunteers. By 1913, the Ulster Volunteer Force had mustered an entire company based in and around Tynan, eventually getting the designation G Company of the 1st Battalion County Armagh Regiment Ulster Volunteers. However, rather than these infantry troops, the young Strong became involved in one of the UVF specialised units. The use of motorised vehicles for military purposes was still a concept very much in its infancy, and in this regard the UVF was well ahead of its time when it formed the Ulster Signalling and Dispatch Riding Corps. The purpose of this body was to act as an effective means to both convey orders to the Ulster Volunteers across the province and also to bypass the need for postal services, which it believed were heavily infiltrated by militant Irish nationalist sympathisers and indeed by British intelligence. The means employed were signalling by flags, wireless telegraph, signal lights, motor cars, and by an interest of James Jr., motorcycles. Despite his young age, still just 22, James Jr. became prominent in the province-wide organisation of the Ulster Signalling Body, and indeed participated in one of the most interesting events of the pre-war period in Ulster. In July 1913, Edward Carson and James Craig visited Tynan Abbey for a unique mimic war exercise. In an attempt to demonstrate the mobility capability of the UVF, a corps of motorcyclists participated in an overnight exercise to symbolically blow up the Boyne Bridge at Drogheda and to capture various other nearby outposts of mythological importance to Irish unionism. The corps left Tynan Abbey shortly after midnight, with James commanding the engineer section of the force, travelling to the Boyne via Middletown, Clontibret, Castleblaney, Crossmaglen, Dundalk and Castle Bellingham. At the Boyne, there they affixed notices symbolising their achievement, with the Boyne Bridge itself having a bill pasted to it proclaiming "captured by Ulster Volunteer Force." At the massive Boyne obelisk, dedicated to King William III, destroyed in an explosion in 1923, a Union flag was erected alongside a sign. That sign stated, "Rebel hands may tear down this flag, but they will never tame the lion hearts of Ulster." The camp at Tynan also featured a separate challenging 139-mile long endurance race run for the motorcyclists through territory that none were familiar with. James Matthew was one of 29 participants in this race from across the entirety of Ulster. Now, upon the advent of the Great War, it was inevitable he would follow yet another family tradition and enlist into the forces. And he did so into that battalion of the 36th Ulster Division that was set aside for the Armagh UVF, the 9th Battalion Royal Irish Fusiliers. His regimental number, 14,288, demonstrates that he enlisted directly as a member of the Armagh UVF. Unsurprisingly, part of his role in the military saw him taking a prominent role in an Orange Lodge formed for the 9th Battalion, namely LOL 318, with it allegedly having as many as 450 members. After subsequently working within the 10th Battalion Royal Irish Fusiliers, this warrant, this lodge number, eventually found its way back to Killaloe, where by permission it was adopted by the Listen Fide Loyal Orange Lodge, who then renamed their lodge Strong Memorial. His reputation, abilities and involvement in the Ulster Volunteers were such that the young James Matthew Strong was awarded a commission to second lieutenant within a month of enlisting, despite no really relevant military record. By May 1915, he had risen to the rank of lieutenant, and in October 1915, he landed in France as the 9th Battalion Royal Irish Fusiliers transport officer. So began a short but eventful military career. Noted regularly in the letters of his battalion commander, Colonel Blacker, it was clear he was well respected by both his officer peers and those under his command alike. He participated admirably in the major engagements of the Western Front that his battalion participated. On the 16th of August 1917, having returned to the front after a period of leave during which he managed to both get married and have his honeymoon, Lieutenant Strong participated in what was defined as the first day of the Battle of Langemarck. The 9th Battalion Royal Irish Fusiliers entered this fray with 23 officers and 640 other ranks. But the final casualty listing tells the story of the day best. 442 dead or wounded. Of the 23 officers, only 3 survived unscathed. The exact circumstances of James' final moments are lost in the depths of time. However, it is known that he was fatally injured near an area defined as Hill 35. Such was the esteem in which he was held. Knowing he was injured, one of his sergeants called for volunteers to find him and recover his body. Transport Sergeant William Neal from Ballymacatier near Lurgan gathered a band of 4 men, and they did indeed find their commanding officer. A service for which Lady Strong later gave Sergeant Neal a personal gift in the years following the war. It would later be quoted that Strong had fell wounded unto death after bringing up through shot and shell the supplies of water, food and munition that the men so sorely needed. News of the death of the only son and heir of Sir James Strong was greeted with great sadness, and the pages of provincial and national, indeed worldwide newspapers were filled with notices of commiserations. In his own district, he was mourned with a genuine and sincere sense of loss for their Jimmy Strong. In the immediate aftermath, the Lord Primate of Ireland, described as an intimate family friend, said that the whole of Ulster is one today in deep and heartfelt sympathy with Sir James and Lady Strong and the members of their family, and especially with the young bride, in the overwhelming sorrow which has fallen upon them through the death in action of Lieutenant James Strong. I have known him for some years, and have seldom or ever met a more gallant, devoted, and thoroughly Christian young Irishman. Greatly loved at home and respected by all who knew him, we naturally looked forward to a long and useful life among us. At a memorial service in September 1917, many Orangemen marched to the church in Tynan, where they heard the Lord Primate take for his sermon the text, "Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." The Primate told those assembled that he had read the testimony of officers and men alike to Lieutenant Strong's patience, resourcefulness, and courage. One who had the right to speak of the deceased officer said he never set his men a task which he would not willingly perform himself. In his concluding remarks, he told how he believed Lieutenant Strong's name itself was a wider linkage between all those Ulstermen who had made a sacrifice on the fields of battle. During his short life, James Matthew Strong had quickly progressed up the rungs of the ladders of society and politics, and how far he would have continued to rise up is up for debate. His only physical legacy, beyond a far-off gravestone in Belgium, is that memorial erected in his home church. In the early 1920s, Lady Strong set about establishing a suitable monument to remember her son in St. Vindic's, Tynan, but she unfortunately passed away before it was unveiled. In June 1926, elaborate oak panelling around the chancel of the church was dedicated to her only son's memory. Large numbers attended, and some were reported as wearing armbands that were emblazoned with the letters JS in his honour. The inscription read, "To the greater glory of God, and in loving memory of James Matthew Strong, killed in action in Flanders on the 16th of August 1917, and brought by his dear men to burial at Brandhock." The Strong family motto is Tentanda via est, meaning the way must be tried. For James, the way was tried, but not always lead forward. I was deeply shocked to learn of the tragic death of your father and brother. Prince Philip joins me in sending you and your sister all our deepest sympathy on your dreadful loss. Sir Norman's loyal and distinguished service will be remembered. Such were the words of Queen Elizabeth II to the daughter of Sir Charles Norman Lockhart Strong, better known as Sir Norman, following his murder and that of his son by the IRA at Tynan Abbey in January 1981. It was a brutal and callous end to a life that had contributed massively to Northern Ireland. Born on the 23rd of July 1894 in the hamlet of Bransford in County Down, the son of Sir Charles Edmund Sinclair Strong, a cousin of Sir Henry Strong. A colourful career saw Sir Norman serve in both the First and Second World Wars and become a highly regarded long-serving member of the Parliament of Northern Ireland. Educated at Eton, a staunch and devoted member of each of the Loyal Orders. His dedication also saw him installed as the Sovereign Grand Master of the Royal Black Institution. There is little doubt that Stronge's commitment to the armed forces and the Loyal Orders was heavily influenced by the pedigree of the Stronge family lineage. His father was, in 1916, the Deputy Grand Master of County Londonderry Orange Order. And during the Home Rule crisis, he had presided over the inaugural meeting to establish the Ulster Volunteers in the Ackadowey area in the local parochial hall. Charles Edmund Stronge eventually became the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion of the South Derry Regiment of the Ulster Volunteer Force, covering Ackadowey, Garva and Kilrea district. Sir Norman Stronge was a member of the Ackadowey Company of the Ulster Volunteer Force, and at just 20 years of age was one of the commanding officers of the 1st South Derry Battalion when they were inspected by Edward Carson in Garva in 1914. Their family home at Lizard Manor in Ackadowey was the scene of regular manoeuvres of the local Ulster Volunteers. His involvement in County Londonderry UVF led directly to his recruitment into the locally raised volunteer battalion, the 10th Battalion Royal Enniskilling Fusiliers, the Derrys. He received a commission as a second lieutenant, but within a few months had been further promoted to the rank of lieutenant. Following the tragic events that began on the battlefields of the Somme on the 1st of July 1916, he was promoted to captain and bears the singular honour of being the first soldier mentioned in dispatches by Field Marshal Haig after the beginning of the Somme offensive. By April 1918, he had been appointed as adjutant, de facto second in command, of the 15th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles, a battalion of the 36th Ulster Division, originally formed from the North Belfast Regiment Ulster Volunteers. Before his surrendering his commission in August 1919, after injury in battle, he had been awarded the Military Cross and the Belgian Cross de Guerre. His war service was rewarded with the granting of the honorary title Captain. After the war, Norman returned to Ackadowey and just a few years later married Gladys Olive Hall from County Galway. Now, upon the passing of Sir James Henry Stronge of Tynan Abbey in 1928 without heir, Sir Norman moved to Tynan to take up residence in the ancestral family home, his father having been a first cousin of Sir James. The title of Baronet Stronge of Tynan Abbey, however, went to the next closest surviving relative of Sir James, who at that time was Norman's uncle. Norman's uncle became the 6th Baronet. On his passing, Norman's father became the 7th Baronet. Then, on his death in 1939, Sir Norman became the 8th Baronet Stronge. Prior to this, he had entered the upper echelons of politics. In 1938, being elected to Stormont for the constituency of Mid Armagh, a seat which he was to hold until his retirement 31 years later. A rich parliamentary career was most notable for his role as Speaker, for which he was elected to in 1945. Politics did not stop Sir Norman entering the fray when World War II began, and he took a commission directly into the North Irish Horse Royal Armoured Corps as a second lieutenant. Unfortunately, he had to relinquish that commission because of ill health. However, his military experience was to be utilised once again when he was appointed with a territorial unit of the Royal Irish Fusiliers as an honorary colonel. As a pastime, He was both an expert on wildlife and an expert shot. In Tynan Abbey, he enjoyed observing swans, wild geese, and woodcock, captivated by them. He equally enjoyed shooting and regularly could finish a day, it was said, with as many as 200 pigeons. Sir Norman Strong often went shooting with his cousin, Sir Basil Brooke, but despite his own skill, Viscount Brookborough always seemed to finish the day with more kills. Among Sir Norman Strong's many other roles throughout his life, he was president of the Northern Ireland Council of the Royal British Legion. He was chairman of Armagh County Council. He was Her Majesty's Lieutenant for Armagh, and he was a Justice of the Peace for both counties Armagh and Londonderry. As an Orangeman, he was a prominent member of the Derry Haw Bound Defenders Loyal Orange Lodge 768, Killalea district, and he was an active parishioner, a very active parishioner within St Vindic's Church of Ireland in Tynan. In 1948, he became the sovereign Grand Master of the Black Institution, a role that Sir Knight Strong held until he resigned from it in 1971 at the age of 77. Norman had 4 children, with 3 daughters born before the birth of his son in 1932. Norman's heir was named in memory of the Tynan forebear, whose death had indirectly led them from Acadowie to County Armagh, James Matthew Strong. Educated at Eton, like his father, and Christ Church, Oxford, he soon followed in his father's footsteps at home. In 1967, he became High Sheriff of Armagh, and the following year he took over the Mid-Armagh parliamentary seat from his retired father. He had also been an officer in the Grenadier Guards. A high-profile political life, public life, does not appear to have been among James's priorities or aspirations, and he eventually effectively withdrew from political and military life, preferring to concentrate on managing the farm at Tynan, service as a reserve constable in the RUC, and dabbling in merchant banking. Shortly after 9 p.m. on Wednesday, the 21st of January 1981, a provisional IRA mob arrived at Tynan Abbey. Composed of seasoned terrorists and murderers from across South Tyrone, North Monaghan and South Armagh, they were armed with explosives and with machine guns. The 86-year-old Sir Norman Strong and his son James were each murdered within the Abbey's library by shots to the head, and Tynan Abbey burned to the ground. The reason given for the brutal murder was that the Strongs were, from the mouth of the IRA, symbols of hated unionism. Gerry Adams made the disgusting statement that the only complaint I have heard from nationalists or anti-unionists is that he was not shot 40 years ago. In contrast, SDLP politician Austin Curry said of Sir Norman that even at 86 years of age, he was still incomparably more of a man than the cowardly dregs of humanity who ended his life in this barbaric way. Both Sir Norman and his son were buried in St Vindic's Parish Church, Tynan, in a joint service. The coffin was carried by the successors to his old regiment, the 5th Battalion Royal Irish Fusiliers. Sir Norman Lockhart Strong was a man of calm demeanour, strong reserve and intellectual thinking. He held scrupulous moral values, and he was loyal and pious. A man who believed in justice, and a man who, when elected as Speaker in Stormont, was said to be from a family which has been known for generations for its fairness, its courtesy, and its neighbourliness. Sir Norman Strong was highly respected among both communities and possessed both benevolence and courage. When Tynan Abbey was burnt to the ground, centuries of history were destroyed. Thousands of documents and records relating to the most important episodes in Ireland for over 200 years. More so, however, 2 men were destroyed. One, while 86 years of age, had given much and had still much to offer the world. One man was charged with the brutal murders. He was later acquitted. Thank you for listening to this evening's presentation. As the weeks progress, we are ironing out all the flaws in the technology, and we think we're getting there. And please, if you have any ideas or suggestions, get in touch. Your feedback would not just be welcomed, it would be really appreciated. Don't forget that this project, the Bygone Days project, is a not-for-profit project designed to disseminate and spread lost history for far and wide. And part of that is distributing booklets on all of these topics. There are now 37 titles. They're only £3 each or £4, including postage, covering a vast range of subjects across the Orange Order, the Ulster Volunteers, and Ulster and Irish military history. There's one on the Strongs, etc. Get in touch if you're interested in purchasing any of those booklets. Now, the next presentation carried out by Bygone Days, you don't have to wait until next Tuesday. The next presentation will actually be this Thursday evening at 8 p.m, Thursday the 16th of April. And that is via the Newtown Cunningham Community Outreach Project, the second presentation for that organisation in East Donegal. And the topic will be the Donegal Orangemen, examining the Orange heritage, individuals and events involved with Orangism in County Donegal from 1795 to the present day. And next Tuesday's presentation will remain Orange, although a bit further afield. Next Tuesday night's presentation will be the Three Castles Orangemen, historical notes on the Orange institution in the city of Dublin. Did you know that in the 1880s, Dublin City had 4,000 Orangemen within its boundaries? Thanks again for joining Bygone Days History. Please get in touch with any feedback or if you're interested in the booklets, and we hope to see you drop in again soon.